in the bank. At the end of the year, you can spend, it will buy $100 worth. That's what should be worrying us all. The deficits under Bush were too high, but the deficits were in the 400 plus or minus. And the last year, the tax cuts had really started causing increases in revenue because these jobs were growing. And so the last year or two is 168, just call it 200 billion. And the reason that the Democrats would not pass a budget this year, if you haven't watched closely, they did not pass a budget because they would have had to put in print their deficit number. I will guarantee you their deficit number is close to 2T. It's almost 10 times the Bush deficits. So we have spent too much. We have to start finding places to cut. An easy place is just a fraud. Fraud in Medicare. Fraud in Medicare is, according to the CMS or whoever it is, it's about $90 billion a year. And in Medicaid, the fraud is about $60 billion a year. If we just close the fraud loopholes, and these are not hard to do, we know them, but you're talking $150 billion a year there. We have programs throughout our government that I think we should look at every one. What I would do is begin to involve the American people, and we would take segments of the budget, 1 or 2 pages at a time, and let the American people go online and start saying yes or no. And I will guarantee you the American people will begin to say no to programs that are eating away at our future and causing us to borrow money that we don't have. 3, who was the third one? Yes.
Well, you kind of touched on a lot of this that I was going to ask about, but I was watching TV today. There were huge riots in Belgium and Germany. Unionized workers, and those countries are trying to reduce the size of their government and their expenditures. And my question is, how do you do that? We have a couple of generations now in this country that think that the government owes them a living, it owes them health care, it owes them everything from cradle to grave. And quite frankly, I haven't been too pleased with how the Republicans have dealt with this for about 20 years now. And you know, how do you take a country that is in such trouble? And I hear every politician say we've got to reduce the size of government. How do you do that when you have a populace that says no?
Yeah.
And we've got, you know, we're all here and we all kind of think the same thing, the Tea Party people. But you have a huge amount of people in this country that feel like they're owed something. 50% of the people in this country do not even pay taxes. He worries about how do we pay for tax cuts. You know, we've got people in this country that are just living off the government. And how do you reduce the size of a government that's gotten so out of hand that it's unmanageable?
You bet. There are several approaches to that, and we'll just cover a couple of them. But one understanding is that you have to really watch closely to know that under the Obama administration that government employees are skyrocketing. And one bill that they passed just recently, there's a yellow page bill that says that the government can't compete unless it goes to, if it can go to the yellow pages and find a small business, then the government can't compete it. They just passed a bill that did away with that provision, and so it's going to kill a lot of small business jobs, and what it's going to do is increase government employment. And again, if you want to know the stimulus for that, why are they doing it? Then you simply go back to the unions and understand that these are their requirements. They helped get Mr. Obama in office, and this is what they're insisting on. They're insisting also on a thing called card check, which would do away with the secret ballot of union elections, which now allows the unions to come in and muscle people around. And so intimidation would become a big factor in whether business is unionized. It's basically viewed that it would cause American small business across the nation, small and large business alike, to unionize. So understand the source of that to know where we would begin to cut. First thing I would do is reverse that law that did away with the yellow page bill. If we have private businesses that are willing to do it, then the government should use them. That would begin to move this back. We also have an obligation to look at the growth of government bureaucracies, and I use the same example all the time because it's very effective. The numbers I use are a couple of years old, so it may be worse now, and I would guarantee it's not better. But it used to, in the 70s, it took one person to run the Lincoln National Forest. That's down at Ruidoso. About 1 million acres in the Lincoln National. The Gila's got about 3 million acres. So it took one person to run it. He did everything. He came and talked to me. He said I was it. I was a single employee. Now, do you know how many people it takes to run that agency today, just at Lincoln National Forest? I always let it go on like a bidding contest. Anybody want to take a guess?
20.
20, it's higher than 20.
50.
How many?
50.
70 is higher than 70. I mean, you should now begin to, your eyes should get this big. Yeah.
200.
It's a little under 200. So we went from 1 to about 150, more or less, people. There are no more acres. They actually contract out some of the services that one guy used to do. So they contracted out, and you got 150 people doing what one guy used to do. That is the growth in our government that is just overwhelming us. And so the final answer to your question is that I majored in economics, and so one of the things I liked about it was that the purity of economics. You can dodge economic truths for a while, but eventually they will slap you in the face. So California has felt like for the last 50 years they could run businesses out through overtaxation and through overregulation, and so they've been doing it randomly. And now that today their budget is so short they can't run their business. We are faced with the same problem in New Mexico, Arizona, and in fact, we're faced with the problem in the U.S. government. We're either going to cure it or we're going to fail as an economy. Or we're going to do like Argentina. We're going to go to 1,500% rate of inflation because we have to print money to cause it to work. By the way, vegetables already inflation. Vegetables today are 50% higher than they were a year ago. It's not that vegetables are worth more, it's your dollars are worth less. Gold is at all-time highs yesterday. David, where I don't track it every day, is hitting all-time highs, not because gold is worth more. It's actually used in the same manufacturing process it was a month ago, and 2 months ago, and a year ago. It's that your dollar is worth less. So know that your savings account is being eaten away from this economic truth here, that you cannot continue to spend this much more money than you bring in. We absolutely need to start cutting the size of government just in the easy places here. We need to review the size of every agency. We need, some agencies are duplicative so that 3 or 4 agencies do the same thing, and we need to have the courage to go and start cutting away the duplication, excuse me, that's a better term. All right, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All right. Now, if I ever leave somebody out, I forget you that about this stage of the night that 1, 2, 3 start running together. So keep me honest up here. I'm going to keep up the next one.
Am I one?
Yes.
There are a few of us in this room who spent all or portions of our careers in the classroom. Some of us have watched education evolve over the years, and I'll just use this as an example, from sack lunches to free lunches and breakfasts for everybody. That's just a simple kind of example. My question to you is, if we don't reprioritize how we spend money on schools, what's going to happen? I mean, we're putting more money in, and we're getting less of a product every year.
Yeah. So the way I look at that is like we've got a pipeline, and the pipeline is full of dollars, and we put the money in, and what comes out the end is the service. What is soaked up here, the outflows of the pipeline, are the bureaucratic costs. So you got the bureaucracy versus service. In the education department over here, we were discussing that. I saw a study about 1.5 years ago that said the average salary of your employee in Washington in the education department who don't touch students at all is over $100,000. That includes janitors, everything. That's their salary. Their benefits are on top of it, so that now the average federal worker takes $4.4 million for the time they work and they finish retirement. It's the reason that the private sector can do things so much better if we create these jobs and find ways to go back to the yellow pages over here, the yellow pages, then we begin to get a more efficient nature. So your question here is about the leakage in the school lunch programs, and frankly, the fight is on the bureaucracy. The estimate when I was in the state legislature was that in the Albuquerque schools, 50%, that's the estimate because we could never get the real numbers, 50% went to the bureaucracy, and